Great to have you today on Press Hour. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your confidence on the program. On today's edition of Press Hour, we're going to treat two topics. One, which is topical. COVID-19 vaccines are here. We have already 2, and we're waiting for 2 others to make 4, so that Cameroonians do not die like we hear, we learn in other countries across the world. That's the first topic. We're going to see, just to tell you what you need to know about the COVID-19 vaccines. We're also going to talk about Press Freedom Day. The World Press Freedom Day is tomorrow, May 3rd. And the theme is ecosystem gathering, focusing on getting the human being closer to nature. We're going to see how far Cameroon has gone, the situation, whether there is freedom, there is anarchy, or there is something else in Cameroon. We have a full house already to discuss those 2 topics. I have with me here, I begin with you, His Royal Highness, you are right, Professor Wilfred Bacham. You are an public health biotechnologist. Yes. Thank you. You're going to give us that. We have with us here Dr. Florence Tumazang, who is an obstetrician. You're also a gynecologist and a public health physician. Am I right?
Yes, you are right. And if I may add, I work for the Cameroon Baptist Convention Health Services.
Thank you very much. We are honored by your presence here. We have to the end of the set, extreme right, Christian, who is the publisher of the Guardian Post newspaper, the only English daily in the country. Welcome to the program, Christian.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine.
The pleasure is shared, and our own Comfort Musa. Comfort Musa is journalist, a coordinator of Sisters Speaks 237. Welcome to the program, Comfort.
Thank you, Killian. Thanks for having me on set.
And the second part of the program, which will be an all-journalists affair ahead of the World Press Freedom Day, we're going to welcome Bless Amende, who is a freelance journalist and editor. We're also going to welcome another journalist, Richard Nde, who is the publisher of the Herald Tribune. We're going to set the program rolling as usual. First things first, the first lot is the press review with Emanuela Vermeulen. Emanuela?
The press week in Cameroon has been full of activities that got media practitioners pen and paper ready. Cameroon government targets to vaccinate 5 million people against the coronavirus pandemic before the year runs out on Cameroon Tribune. At a time, 700 persons have already been vaccinated on the Herald Tribune. Yet, the surge in the number of COVID-19 cases in the country causes minister to cancel Labour Day activities on the same paper. The interest of the Sun is on NGO that uncovers management lapses in COVID-19 funds. Then, Human Rights Watch warns against manipulation of facts in investigation into COVID-19 funds on the Eden, before urging the IMF to oblige Cameroon to account for COVID-19 funds before a third loan on the Post. Just when Cameroon secures 60 billion CFA francs from World Bank to assist in its recovery from the shocks of COVID-19 on Cameroon Insider, malaria is said to have killed over 40,000 people in 2020 on the Eden. Then Oxford-developed vaccine against malaria spreads fresh hope on Cameroon Insider. Another religious bow-bow Nyansako Ninku falls on the post-weekend as PCC loses iconic moderator, preacher and orator on the Guardian Post. To the horizon, Cameroon is hit by 3 more high-profile deaths, and with the former PCC moderator Nyansako Ninku no more on Cameroon Insider, the Eden writes, when the sermon died. To the Voice weekend, that Reverend Nyansako Ninku, clergy of Metal, transits into glory, a passing also carried by the Sun. The crisis in the northwest and southwest regions continue to make victims International rights group catalogues shocking Amber atrocities on municipal updates as fresh wave of kidnappings, killings hit Bito-Wiri Anglophone regions on The Voice. A former MP is kidnapped at wife's funeral while traditional rulers' corpse seized on The Guardian Post. But the fresh news on this crisis would definitely be a military raid that recovers Land Cruiser in Amber hideout on the Herald Tribune, a crisis which has exposed domestic workers to modern slavery, according to the Post-Weekender. Just when UK is now for inclusive dialogue on root causes of Anglophone crisis on the horizon. The reception by the world MMA heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou of presidential acclaim, government's refusal of looming debt distress, the donation of 15,000 ITC equipment to the Ministry of Secondary Education destined for schools in Cameroon, and the cry from imprisoned one-time Minister of Water Resources and Energy Basil Atanganakuna that hunger will kill him if his bank accounts are not reopened also formed stories reported by the papers this week. Let's now end our press review with this story on The Guardian Post, where irate Christians of Église Évangélique du Cameroun, Kongsamba Parish, sealed church chase pastor accused of stealing church money. Pastor Kunye, according to reports, got to the church premises Sunday to lead church service as usual, but was greeted by a vociferous crowd of faithful who sealed the church and vowed not to allow him officiate any service until he is transferred. Aside swindling church funds, he is also accused of incompetence since taking over office 9 years ago. Until I come your way again, this is your Hour with the Press.
Thank you, Emanuela. We cannot wait to see you come our way. Come next Sunday for another edition of Press Hour. And as we told you in our intro, we're going to start with COVID-19 vaccines. We have AstraZeneca already being administered across the country. We also have Sinopharm also being administered in good doses, good quantities around the country. We are waiting for two others, Johnson & Johnson and Sputnik 5. Those are the four officially authorized by the Cameroonian authorities for Cameroonians to take and get away from COVID-19. We're going to talk about what you need to know in the first part of this program. And as I introduced earlier, you have able medical doctors of different specialties linked to vaccines and viruses, if you like. Here, His Royal Highness, Professor Wilfred Macham, and we have Dr. Florence Tumazan. You're going to tell us, the first thing I will ask is to you, Doctor, what's the situation of COVID-19 in Cameroon?
Well, I think that the situation, we've experienced a second wave, and this second wave has been more deadly than the first wave. And by all predictions, and due to the mutants and variants, it's certain or likely that we would also experience a third wave. But we do not know if the third wave would be much milder than the first wave. We do not know if the fourth wave would be milder than the third wave. But I think that if we successfully vaccinate more people and attain this herd immunity that we're so much looking for, then the third wave and the fourth wave may not be as deadly as the second wave.
So when you talk of we've had the first wave, we are in the second wave, and you're talking about the third and fourth, are those predictions from medical
Well, they are predictions from modelers, and they're predictions from the history of how these pandemics usually attack the population and spread. If you look at the 1918 Spanish flu, it came in 4 waves. The first wave was mild, the second wave was more deadly, but the third wave was embedded in the second wave, so you could not see it very well, but you saw a kink, which meant that there was another variant that had popped up, and then there was a fourth wave that was less. But today we have technology, we have a number of strategies, vaccine strategies, that if we appropriate them, then I think that we can a little bit deaden the third and the fourth waves.
Yes, I turn to you, Dr. Florence. By the end of 2020, end of December 2020, we had less than 500 deaths in Cameroon recorded from COVID-19. Today, we have more than 111. Actually, I looked at it is 1,107 as of the updated figures that I got before I got into the studio here. What explains this sudden leap? That is in 1 year, 2020, and then in just 4 months, 2021, we already have more than the half of the deaths that we had. What explains?
Okay, what we know about viruses and like Prof said, the plague, is that when we have the second wave, it's deadlier. It's not generally because there's a different variant, but because we let off our guard. If you notice at the beginning of the pandemic last year in March, everybody was up in arms. When they decided that we're going to, when they announced it, I was in Bamenda. And when I went to the market, I was pleasantly surprised. That same week, every aisle in the market had water, had soap. When you entered the market, there was an announcement, you washed your hands, and people were taking the mask very seriously. Unfortunately for our population, we don't anticipate like others. So, even though history has shown that there will be a second wave and that people will be, it might be more deadlier, it might be deadlier than the first, we don't anticipate. And so when the second wave came, nobody was prepared, nobody is ready, people are not wearing masks. And to make it worse, let me say this, the social media and even educated people have not helped the masses. There's a lot of skepticism that has spread beyond what we can explain. People tend to believe that, oh, there's no coronavirus. There is coronavirus, but it will not kill. And then, now, more than ever before, we are realizing that the coronavirus is not just here. The second wave is not just here, but it is killing our people.
Yes, Christian, you're a journalist, and from the statistics that I got earlier this morning, we have already more than 1,000 journalists who have died of COVID-19. I'm talking about world figures. What are you doing as a media person to communicate? First, have you taken the vaccine? What are you doing at your level to make sure that you let people know the gravity and get into...
Yeah, Killian, I think I will answer your last two questions, but I will beg to differ with the doc on the issue of the way Cameroonians are taking COVID-19. I think we have to put the blame squarely where it is supposed to be.
And where is that?
The government. Remember when COVID-19 started in March last year, government took some salutary measures. Bars were closed. You know, they were good measures. But you remember, a few weeks after, government, for whatever reason, I mean, we've not had the explanation up to today.
The explanation we have.
No,
we have the explanation. Government actually noticed that keeping after sensitization, people were not living the way they had to live. Eased, they did not stop, eased the barrier measures, but made sure that only 50 people could group, that people did not go to bars. In order to leave, you cannot confine people for 3 months, for 4 months, when they don't leave. That's exactly the explanation. That's what we understood.
Which was not clear enough, because we've seen it in other civilized countries where there are lockdowns even for 2-3 months. Remember, Ngala, the very first month, Killian, sorry, The very first day, that night where government had authorized that bars to be open, I moved around Yaoundé and I heard people shouting, Corona, parle encore, Corona, parle encore. That meant that Corona had been defeated.
Then it's not government. And
It is government that lifted the barrier measures. And the most, you need to visit nightclubs and beer parlors in Yaoundé.
You said you were going to answer the question as a journalist.
To the issue of the vaccine, I'm not sure I'm supposed to declare whether I've taken the
No, it's a public health.
No, but for now, I'm still monitoring.
Okay. Let me say that I have taken the vaccine. That's on Wednesday, I'll be taking my second dose. And frankly, I think every single Cameroonian who has access should take that vaccine. And let me say here, first and foremost, we don't even have enough doses. If we have 1 million doses, which I don't think we have, those 1 million doses will be given to 500,000 people, because each of those vaccines, we need 2 doses. And whether you like it or not, dying from the vaccine is less likely than dying from the disease. And even if you survived the disease, the literature states clearly, the literature that we have up to now, and that's why there are still many questions, the literature that we have up to now shows that you are not sure that you will not have the disease. There is no way of knowing. That's 1. 2, if you have the disease, you don't know how severe it will be. 3, after you have the disease, there might be long-standing complications. Okay? So, my take is that each and every one of us who has access to that vaccine should get vaccinated as soon as possible.
Let me just say one thing.
Comfort hasn't spoken. You will come back to you. Comfort, you've listened to Prof. Wilfred Mbacham, you've listened to Dr. Florence Tumasang. They have explained and said a number of things. We're going to dig deeper. But from what they have said, you as a journalist and coordinator of Sister Speaks 237, what are you doing? Have you taken the vaccine? Are you getting set to take? And what are you doing to sensitize Cameroonians to take?
So I have not yet taken the vaccine. I plan to. And on the level of sensitizing Cameroonians, I have not yet started talking, authoritatively about the vaccine, because I still have questions. As a journalist, you're not supposed to just be a sounding board. You need to understand the issues. Only then can you communicate. And I still have many questions about the vaccine in Cameroon. Unfortunately, we don't have many experts to respond in a timely manner to journalists. Thank God we have Professor and Dr. Tumasang here. My question and why I'm hesitating is, what difference will the vaccine, make? Because I still hear when you take the vaccine, you're still supposed to socially distance, you're still supposed to wear the mask. So what difference, I'm going to take the vaccine, no doubt.
No, well, I'll come back to you, Prof. Just answer. No, that's an issue. Prof should just respond to that issue.
No,
yes, Prof.
I hope you give me the time to respond, because this is exactly, she used the word hesitate.
Yes.
And so there is this whole thing about vaccine hesitancy. Now, it is not something new. 300 years ago, vaccination was actually exported from Africa to the United States by a slave called Onesimus. He was a slave to a Boston clergy, and he was asked to be bought. He was asked, have you had smallpox? He said yes and no. And the minister said, how can you say yes and no? He said, because in Africa we have a practice where you take out the pus from somebody infected and you put it into the wound of an uninfected person, and that person never gets the infection.
What gave you the pus?
Now, that moved on. There was a controversy. How could the clergy be practicing what now is known as variolation when he's not a medical doctor? He hired Boston and hired Ben Franklin, and they went on to vaccinate people undercover. The slaves of the ministers, consequently, they realized that in this group they were vaccinating, the death rate went from 17 out of every 100 persons to 2 out of every 100 persons. That became popular. That is 1721. skin and never had smallpox. And then he introduced that and modernized it. And because the cowpox vaccine, the cowpox virus is called vaccinia, we now got the name vaccines and therefore vaccination. Now, smallpox was ultimately eradicated in 1980. WHO placed its stamp because of global immunization. 2020, there was a Cameroonian at the head of the eradication program for Africa, Prof. Rose Leke, and polio was eradicated because of mass vaccination. So this whole vaccine hesitancy is not something new. But if there's a failure on how people wish to or desire to take the vaccine, it's because of a communication difficulty and problem, and we have not done our job to explain to the lay person that there are three categories of vaccines. There's the first category that prevents you, there's a second category that modulates the disease, and there's a third category for vector-borne infections that prevents the vector from transmitting it to a new person. Now, the coronavirus is of the second category. It modulates. It doesn't say you will never get the infection again. It says that for a time you will not get this infection, or if you get it, you will not die. You will not get into the severe case. And by not getting into the severe case doesn't say that you don't have it. You might be having it and spreading it around. Remember that 8 out of 10 persons are traveling around here having the virus but not knowing that they have it because they're asymptomatic. And these are the people who are giving it over. In my last statement, when I vaccinate my child against tetanus, I am preventing that child from having tetanus because it's a soil-borne infection and it goes with rusty metals and things. But when I vaccinate my son against TB, measles, I am protecting my neighbor's children from getting it. Why? Because once he gets the measles anew, it's going to meet a roadblock. It's not going to transmit it, and the others would be safe. We are in the same situation of a coronavirus that can spread, even if I'm well. It spreads from individuals to different people.
So who should take it?
First, people who are frontline workers. Secondly, people who are elderly. Thirdly, people who have comorbid infections. And then teachers, and then journalists, people who are exposed to the crowds. But the third group of people to take it with comorbid infections, people don't even know. They're walking corpses. You don't even know whether your pressure is high. You don't even know your numbers. You don't even know whether you're diabetic. You don't know whether you are, all these things, they add to aggravate a situation that could have been prevented if we took this
with what you just said, Prof, we are told that if you are already infected, you should not take it. Is that correct?
Well, if you're infected, you get exposed to the virus. Now, there are two, anybody who talks about protection in the corona situation and only delves with one part of it is doing a disservice. Now, when you get an infection, there are two arms of the immune system. There's the humoral, that shows antibodies or antibodies that can neutralize the virus. But there's the cellular arm, which goes out to attack any cell that is infected and kill that cell. So you should talk always about these two arms. But when you look at most of the videos, they're hinging all on the antibody side. When it comes to antibodies, 4 out of 10 individuals will show antibodies that are even cross-reacting, meaning that we have been exposed before to other coronaviruses, beta coronaviruses, SARS-1, Merck's, we had been exposed to them. Somehow we have that protection, that mild protection. But the greater protection comes from cells that attack other cells that have been infected. And 100%, yes. 10 out of 10 individuals who have been exposed have that cellular immunity, which is very tough. And that's what we're trying to achieve by doing the vaccination as well.
Now,
Can I just say something, Killian?
Yes.
You see, you asked me a question as to why or what we are doing to sensitize the public. Comfort says something that is very, very important here. You know, there's been some barrier between very many unanswered questions about the vaccine. Okay. Some people ask me, just like Killian said, you are a journalist, what are you doing? I say, why? They will say, but there was HIV, we had malaria, that is the most deadly diseases. Yep. We've not heard of a vaccine. Yeah. We are talking about COVID just a year ago, and they're talking of a vaccine, and so many people are skeptical.
Yes, Doctor.
Okay, let me.
Let her just come.
So
and
my question will be: now that we're sensitizing millions of Cameroonians watching, after this, people listen to professor and doctor and they say, I'm going tomorrow to get the vaccine, and you have millions of people showing up at the hospital. Will we have enough supplies as we start creating a demand? Because sensitization creates a demand and people will go to the hospitals. Do we have enough vaccines to meet the need that we're creating now?
There are two issues. Yes, you begin.
Well, I mean, I just really want to insist on what Prof said. When you vaccinate somebody, a child, for measles, it's not that that child might not get measles. That child might get measles, but certainly that child will not die from measles. And I can tell you from my experience as a medical student and today, the number of children that were dying daily in Bodeloc of Hôpital Central. Any of my classmates or anybody who was in medical school at that time will tell you. Now, the medical students who are there don't even know what measles looks like. The other disease is tetanus. As a medical student, I had a tetanus patient for my exams in the 6th year. Again, I can tell you, nobody seems to see tetanus anymore. Every pregnant woman will make sure they are vaccinated if they have not been vaccinated.
Yes, we are.
So that's answering her question about people being vaccinated. I did say before here that people who understand should go and get vaccinated. Maybe it's because of the vaccine hesitancy that government has not even ordered enough supplies. But if you go and vaccinate yourself, you are protecting yourself and you are protecting those around you. There are countries that have achieved the herd immunity. Israel is a country that everybody is citing. And just before I came here,
the same vaccine that Cameroonians are taking?
They are taking the Pfizer.
Because that's another...
I know it's another thing.
The point, we noted that point
Yes.
on the effectiveness of the vaccines that we have. We have in Cameroon today, as we said earlier, AstraZeneca. We also have Sinopharm.
Yes.
Effectiveness, you convince Cameroonians that they are effective.
They are.
What percentage? Is there any issue with the percentage?
Well,
I have the feeling that my question has been carefully avoided.
Which is it?
The question about a vaccine for HIV and malaria.
No,
okay, we will get there. He is the specialist of
I will answer that.
of malaria.
Insufficiency of vaccines in case tomorrow people show up to the hospitals.
With Prof is going to answer, I should not answer in his place.
Yes.
With malaria, you have the temperature rising, you can go to the hospital. It is clear.
Vaccine
it's clear, but with COVID-19...
even stop you from having the malaria. Why have we not had that?
Okay.
So basically, if you notice that most of the vaccines that have been made against bacteria and viruses. Now, malaria is a parasite. And a very strange parasite, a parasite that has part of it as a plant. So it is very difficult to make a vaccine against that. Helpfully, with the coming of COVID, we have now used that technology. I'm sure you saw recently in the papers that they have used the same technology like they used in COVID, and they have developed a vaccine around that same technology that is addressing and has been tried. And it's 70%, 7 out of 10 children are protected from having it. So basically, this is the situation. Now, I just want to come back to how vaccines have been made. Most often, when the technology went modern, they went for subunit vaccines, meaning that they purify things and then take one small isolate of a protein and then they do the vaccine. But Anomangu said, no, you need the entire organism to fight the infection itself. And this is exactly what strategies has been happening. Now, at the University of Boya, before Professor Titangi left, and he's still pursuing that, he made mathematical calculations to show exactly if any pathogen has any number of stages in the humans, what should be the composition of the vaccine. And he came up with a formula that tells you precisely that if there are 6 stages, then you need 2 to the power 6. If there are 2 stages, you need 2 to the power 2 for that to constitute your vaccine. So it's getting to that stage. Luckily, with the coming of COVID, why did the vaccine for COVID come up so quickly? It's not so quickly. It's been for 17 years under investigation from the time the first SARS-CoV came about. And people have put in so much money which all other people in the malaria will have to go grapple with money to bring to the table. But so much money was infused because it was pinching onto the economy, and with that, people were able to try out new things, which has now resulted in particularly this. Now remember that there are 4 types of vaccines. You can have a vaccine which is an inactivated virus. So it's the virus, but they've inactivated it either by heat or by chemical. That's one category. The other one is a subunit vaccine, where they purified proteins and then they can administer. The third category is that which they take some of the viral proteins which the body would mount an immune response against, and they put it into a virus that is not virulent, and then they're able to give that to persons. The fourth category is one where they introduce the nucleic acids that make the proteins against which an immune response is given. Now, irrespective of which of those strategies they use, all of them come back to one cell in the body, one cell. It's called the antigen-presenting cell. So no matter the route by which they come, the antigen-presenting cell takes all of these guys, remodulates it, and then it is that cell that now presents what it does to the immune system, and then for the immune system to mount a response. So all the vaccines based on their strategy are just showing stages in which the proteins are made, but at the end of the day, they all come back to the antigen-presenting cell. That is the only cell capable of saying this is a foreign pathogen, and mount an immune response against it. So irrespective of the route, it comes back to the same thing, presenting what is adequate for the body to mount a response against.
Prof, this is where I think you should land, you should get to conclusion of the technicalities of vaccines you have explained to us. This is the question I'm asking you.
Yes.
The hesitancy comes from the side effects people are getting about the vaccine. So what are you telling these people who are afraid of side effects that are normal?
Now,
why should they take the...
Now, let me adjust my chair properly, because I think this would be my finale. When you put out an intervention, say like a vaccine, right? Or a drug, it goes through many phases. The first phase is that you check for its safety. In a limited number of people, is it safe? And by that way, you're addressing the second issues of bioethics, which is non-maleficence. In trying to do good, let me not cause harm. The second aspect is, this is safe. Is it efficacious? Can it do what it is intended to do? You take it to a smaller, but larger group than the safety group. And then you look at it and you say, yes, it's efficacious. In this limited group, phase 3 is that you now expand it to a larger group, and then you watch out for what could be the side effects in a larger population. And then you say, it is safe and efficacious, and now we can send it out. Now, phase 4 is post-marketing. That after we've sent it out, are there any issues that come about? Now, look at this. Most of the vaccines, it's causing clots. In a normal population, clots would occur 0.2% of the time. So you need 2 individuals every 1,000 individuals for you to get a clot. All right?
So now, without the vaccine.
Without the vaccine. Now, with the vaccine, it occurs, I have to count my fingers, 0.00002% of the time.
Negligible.
Extremely negligible. In other words, the vaccine actually should be protecting the population from having the clots. So basically, this is where those side effects. Now remember that all vaccines never work 100% in everybody. People have different genetics. Have different genetics, and so they react differently to the different excipients, things that have added to keep the vaccine stable and do that. So all these reactions are exactly what people are a little bit scared about. But if you look at the beneficial effects of having a vaccine, it outweighs the risk that people take. Just last one question, which should open up the minds of people. Have you ever drank paracetamol?
Yes, of course.
Have you?
Of course, yes.
Okay, what does it do? It helps you calm the pains and the headache.
Yes.
Now, did you know that paracetamol is hepatotoxic? It is toxic to the liver. It is. Every time you drink it, your liver spills out enzymes.
And it's 0.4.
That ratio of benefits to risk you take it because it calms you. Because your body is also capable of reharnessing the liver and repatching it so that you're cured of the pains, but your liver rebuilds itself.
I think there was...
So that's something that people need to know in how they weigh the risk
and then the benefits. So you have no reason anymore not to take the vaccine because of
but if so many people go for the vaccine.
So many people go, we
have
vaccines.
Now, what does that mean? I'm sure that Dr. Tumasan would agree that if you have had the infection, there is no reason to hurry for the vaccine because you've had some kind of immunity. Even when the corona came, there were people with some amount of immunity. So if you had diagnosed and you have had the infection, there's no reason to hurry that. You should leave it for the others. If I have been infected, I should allow my vaccine for another person because that person needs it much more than I do.
That is great, Prof. Given that we have so many people who get infected, they are asymptomatic, they do not know. How do we now know who has got to that stage?
Well, the only way to know is by reason of paper. Have you been diagnosed and do you have a positive test? Have you been infected and have you been treated? If people don't even go for the diagnosis, how would you even know that you're carrying it? I remember last 2 weeks ago, we were trying to organize a little competition, an international competition. 200 people came, 6 were positive, and they were not even aware that they were positive. One refused, came back 1 week later, he was too positive. We had to carry him, quarantine him, and treat him intentionally for him to get well.
Yes.
So basically, there are people should go for this diagnosis, which is free. And once they know that they have been infected, then they can allow themselves some amount of time, which we are giving like 6 months, so that they can now come back. So it won't be a thing of an annual thing. Corona is here to stay.
Okay.
It will be an annual thing where every year we will go in for vaccinations to protect the most vulnerable against further infections that would drive them into their deathbeds.
And part of the answer to Comfort's question, I'm not a medic, but we are involved in communication. We follow the trends. The first consignment of vaccine that came was Sinopharm. There were 200,000 doses. The second consignment came, that was AstraZeneca, with 391,000, with an additional 19,000. I think I still have the figures right because I was at the airport to receive that. When those were given, those doses were given, the people who gave under the World Health Organization said that those were just the first consignment, that others were coming. So I think you're going to tell us that people should not be asking the question. Comfort is asking that if everybody goes out, will there be sufficient doses? Let people first go out. Is that the message?
Yes, I think so.
And where will these vaccines be in terms of access?
Okay, right. At first, the facilities that were giving the vaccines were limited. But right now, like in the Northwest region, you have vaccines in BBH, you have vaccines in Bingo, you have vaccines at all district hospitals, Same thing here in Yaoundé, in all regions of the country, all district hospitals. So if you were to go to BMRC district hospital, you can be vaccinated. So people should go for their vaccines. The vaccines are available. And like Prof said, there is not one drug, even food, has side effects.
Madam,
right?
Don't you think that your statement is too sweeping when you say people should go for the vaccine? And we know the quantity that has come in. Well, we have more than 26 million Cameroonians. Yeah. And you are using...
I think...
Well,
yes.
People are a little bit anxious because the vaccines that are there may expire. Because people are not showing.
No, let's imagine the situation where everybody is
listening to us. I think that's the message.
Yeah. No, I think
million Cameroonians for
I think the ministry has put out exactly the schedule of the kinds of people who should come first. But there's no reason for. I mean, they have cited that the health workers should come, the elderly should come,
those who have comorbidities,
the comorbidity should come, and then they are now targeting teachers.
Yes,
they are now targeting teachers, and then the military, and then the journalists as well. So these are the groups that would first go, and then the rest of the people can now subsequently get it. But I think that vaccine hesitancy is a breakdown of communication. And where should it start? It should start from the grassroots. We should do a lot of sensitization. The funds of villages should do that. The pastors should be doing it. The teachers, scientists should be doing it. Before it ever comes to the journalist. I have not seen a column where you have interviewed a scientist of great repute extensively, almost covering all the questions.
All the questions.
I'm still waiting to see that. I'm not saying come and interview me, but I'm still waiting to see this extensive coverage of the vaccine hesitancy in newspapers in Cameroon. I've not seen it.
Comfort, Christian, the challenge is there. it's
Maybe
the ball is in your court.
I'm taking all the-
Joshua, we're going into the second part of this program. Doctor, your last word on people about these 2 vaccines that we have already.
Okay, my last word is that every Cameroonian who now understands the need for this vaccine should go for the vaccine. Because like I was saying, there's nothing that does not have a side effect. And frankly, I was going to talk about paracetamol as well, because that's what everybody takes every day. Ibuprofen is there, it's killing us, destroying our kidneys, and you're having kidney disease every day. But people are drinking it.
To keep yourself alive.
Now,
so what's
like I said, my message is that if you don't get vaccinated, you risk having the disease. And when you have the disease, the complications might be dire.
Thank you. Last word, Prof.
My last word is that I think we need to go. Everybody, when there's a crisis, there's coping mechanisms. And this is a new branch of health called salutogenesis. We have one salutogenic expert in the country. We should go away from the salutogenesis model.
What is salutogenesis?
Well, salut is health, genesis, so it's health seeking.
Okay.
On the other side is pathogenesis, so disease causing.
Okay.
So these are the extremes of a continuum. So the salutogenic model has very much been self. We should now remove that and take it to the public salutogenic model, which means that I have a social contract to protect my neighbor from having a disease that I may or may not have, and I don't know whether I do or don't have.
Thank you very much. The message has gone across. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Professor. We are very happy to have had you. Now you know the best thing for you to do is to go out there, get a jab of the vaccine. We're going to move into our second subject, that is the World Press Freedom Day. And since it's the World Press Freedom Day, we have this opportunity to come back to the press review that we had from the beginning of this program to get into that discussion. Press review.
The press week in Cameroon has been full of activities that got media practitioners pen and paper ready. Cameroon government targets to vaccinate 5 million people against the coronavirus pandemic before the year runs out on Cameroon Tribune. At a time, 700 persons have already been vaccinated on the Herald Tribune. Yet, the surge in the number of COVID-19 cases in the country causes minister to cancel Labor Day activities on the same paper. The interest of the Sun is on NGO that uncovers management lapses in COVID-19 funds. Then, Human Rights Watch warns against manipulation of facts in investigation into COVID-19 funds on the Eden, before urging the IMF to oblige Cameroon to account for COVID-19 funds before a third loan on the Post. Just when Cameroon secures 60 billion CFA francs from World Bank to assist in its recovery from the shocks of COVID-19 on Cameroon Insider, malaria is said to have killed over 40,000 people in 2020 on the Eden. Then Oxford-developed vaccine against malaria spreads fresh hope on Cameroon Insider. Another religious Baobao Nyansako Ninku falls on the Post weekender as PCC loses iconic moderator, preacher and orator on the Guardian Post. To the horizon, Cameroon is hit by 3 more high-profile deaths, and with the former PCC moderator Nyansako Ninku no more on Cameroon Insider, the Eden writes, when the sermon died. To the Voice weekender, Reverend Nyansako Ninku, clergy of Metal, transits into glory, a passing also carried by the sun. The crises in the northwest and southwest regions continue to make victims. International rights group catalogues shocking amber atrocities on municipal updates as fresh wave of kidnappings, killings hit Bito-Wiri Anglophone regions on The Voice. A former MP is kidnapped at wife's funeral while traditional rulers' corpse seized on the Guardian Post. But the fresh news on this crisis would definitely be a military raid that recovers Land Cruiser in Amber hideout on the Herald Tribune, a crisis which has exposed domestic workers to modern slavery, according to the Post weekender. just when UK is now for inclusive dialogue on root causes of Anglophone crisis on the horizon. The reception by the world MMA heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou of presidential acclaim, government's refusal of looming debt distress, the donation of 15,000 ITC equipment to the Ministry of Secondary Education destined for schools in Cameroon, and the cry from imprisoned one-time Minister of Water Resources and Energy Basil Atanganakuna that hunger will kill him if his bank accounts are not reopened also formed stories reported by the papers this week. Let's now end our press review with this story on the Guardian Post, where irate Christians of Église Évangélique du Cameroun, Kongsamba Parish, sealed church chase pastor accused of stealing church money. Pastor Kunye, according to reports, got to the church premises Sunday to lead church service as usual, but was greeted by a vociferous crowd of faithful who sealed the church and vowed not to allow him officiate any service until he is transferred. Aside swindling church funds, he is also accused of incompetence since taking over office 9 years ago. Until I come your way again, this is your Hour with the Press.
Thank you once again, Emanuela, and that press review again introduces us into our second topic. World Press Freedom Day is tomorrow, May 3rd, and we are asking whether in Cameroon, the Cameroonian situation is that of censorship, is it of freedom, or it is of anarchy, given that we have about 700 newspapers in Cameroon, over 150 about that, radio stations, and around 50 television stations with about 20 online publications. And the way they publish, we are asking ourselves that the Cameroonian situation, is it censorship, is it freedom, is it anarchy? I have 4 pressmen here with me, pressmen including the press lady. I think that's the way we've been calling. Comfort Musa, you've been here from the beginning of this program. We're happy to have you maintain your seat.
Yes, I'm happy we're having this conversation a few hours to World Press Freedom Day, and straight into the question you asked.
Yes, I will come back to you. We have Blaise Amende. Blaise Amende is a freelance journalist and editor. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Kilian. It's my pleasure to be on set, even though the time is going to be quite short to discuss this very big topic.
Yes, and I am challenging you to be more of quality than quantity, because time, you can make quality out of your time. Richard there is the publisher of the Herald Tribune newspaper. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you so very much, Kilian. I'm glad to be here once more.
Yes, Christian, you have been here. We want to congratulate you for maintaining your seat.
Pleasure's mine. We like to sit tight in Cameroon.
Yes, I'm going to ask Richard and Blaise, what do you think we have in Cameroon? Do we have censorship? Do we have freedom? Or we have anarchy?
I think we have a cocktail of all of the anarchy, censorship, and all just mentioned. And when you look at the press freedom indicators, you realize that Cameroon is one of the most dangerous countries to work in Africa. When you look at rankings by Reporters Without Borders, Freedom House, Committee to Protect Journalists, you see that press freedom keeps on shrinking day in, day out. So it's something which I think authorities really need to work on that. And it's also
when we are giving such statistics, you should give a time frame, because it cannot be permanent.
I think in 2021.
But in the last 5 years, it's been dropping. When you look at the ranking, it's been dropping. Okay. Yeah.
So, Richard, where do we situate ourselves as pressmen in Cameroon? Censorship, freedom, or anarchy?
I think there is, like Aminde said, it's all of that. We still have a lot of press censorship. There's a lot of anarchy. And we're talking about press freedom. We can say press freedom because there are over 600 newspapers, there are over 200 radio stations, and over 40 or so TV stations. That does not mean that there is press freedom. But at the end of the day, what the government does actually try to forestall some of these, the freedom that the press is supposed to have. Government is giving the freedom, yet holding it. So the press is really not free. The journalists are not free to operate either on the side of the government or on the side of the non-state armed groups, especially for those operating in the northwest and southwest regions.
Why do you allow government to give you freedom, and you don't want that government to take back? Are you supposed to be given freedom?
No, no, freedom actually is seized, but government has measures, some measures that once the thing that you want to be free, they try, they calm you down.
I call it that.
Well, regulate to what extent? It regulates when people are supposed to be informed. But once you start trying to regulate, then a lot of facts will be hidden. People will not know the truth. And until the press comes out to dish out the truth, things will keep on going the way they are going. Government should allow the press to come out freely and give out the information as it is.
Christian, you are the publisher of the only English daily in Cameroon. Your newspaper, many people describe as the most critical. Don't you think that you are getting closer to too much freedom? I don't want to say anarchy.
Well, the Guardian Post is critical because we are a heady media organ. The threats keep coming. We are not heady because the press is free. We are not critical because the press is free. It's just that, we have a belief at the Guardian Post that when you write, you don't. When you fear, you don't write. When you write, you don't fear, and that has been our guiding principle. But if you want me to describe,
which means that the press is free, as far as your newspaper is concerned.
I've not said we are free. We are free because we are heady. The threats keep coming, but we continue. That's what I've said. Let me describe the issue of press freedom in Cameroon. What government has done, we applaud them for getting so many newspapers functioning, but it is media organs in Cameroon. Government is, what they do is like a man who goes to the market, sells a goat, but is still holding the rope. That's what is happening between the government and the private press in Cameroon. I don't want to talk about CRTV. Of course, there are things that you cannot say here, even on this set.
Even if they're true.
Have I ever, when you come here and you're talking directly to the public?
No, I censor myself when I'm talking here. You don't know how many calls I receive when I leave this program.
Well, but you go home and you sleep for saying that in CRTV and for writing.
I'm supposed to sleep.
Writing,
that is one of things in civilized countries. But I'm saying that here in Cameroon, the moment you report something that touches government's bile, I've received calls at 4 a.m.
If you were government and somebody comes, because some of you are insultive, comes and insults
no.
you want government to come and give you a congratulatory letter?
Clear. When you look at other media houses like the CNN, look at how it took on Trump, and it went free. Look at the NCBC, how it is taking on Biden.
No, Richard.
Let me a very good example you are giving. Is that not what you are doing to government, and then you are going?
No,
but you cannot do that with government and you go free.
That's why he's saying.
Killen, let me correct something. There's a difference between being critical of government action and being insultive. Look, I'm the president of the newspaper, English language newspaper publishers of Cameroon. I bet you there is no English newspaper. I don't want to talk about the French newspapers. They have their style of reporting. For the most part, English newspapers, they criticize. We don't insult. And you cannot bar somebody from criticizing.
Well,
Killian, Comfort hasn't spoken.
When you talk about press freedom in Cameroon and you link it to the number of newspapers and radio stations and TV stations, I think that's a very erroneous indication or an indicator of what press freedom is. Because when you say there are hundreds of radio stations, how many of them are licensed? Most of them are functioning under administrative tolerance. Which means they are not even free to speak the truth. And when you talk about freedom of the press, creating a media organ is not a measure of freedom. Because what is the role of the media organ is to speak truth to power and to check facts. But if you create a media organ and you are not free to speak truth, then of what essence is that media organ? So let's not look at plurality
we'll come
to mean
the sub article you are talking about.
Yeah.
If government could permit somebody following the law, because if you submit an application to create a press organ in 8 days or about that, If you have no reply, you are free to operate.
But that's
and
a trap.
That's exactly what is
because
happening.
then you function under administrative
tolerance.
radio stations
I mean, they keep saying
that have been under administrative tolerance for 20
exactly.
years.
They'll
and
tell
you write an article and SDO calls you to say, don't forget that
it's a main weapon.
It's
done on
so it is not freedom, it's a trap.
There is even a more sophisticated way that the government is using to stifle press freedom in the country, which is through advertising. You know, media organs survive a lot. Advertising is a very big revenue stream for media organizations, and the government has that advertising muscles. It's the biggest advertiser in the country, and so when they give adverts to media organs, they take a very long time to pay these media organs, and by the time that you submit your invoice and you're waiting for payment,
they're regulating you by doing that.
You need to toe the line.
They're doing that by to regulate you.
Way that the government is using to stifle the
you mentioned the guidance. Let me just tell you something.
Yes, I will allow you to tell me what you want to tell me.
Yeah.
This is what happens. I have known shops, provision stores, that are hidden in neighborhoods, but many people go there because the goods, when you go there, you are satisfied. Newspapers are supposed to live, first of all, from the sales. That's what happens elsewhere. Advertising.
It never happens anywhere.
I think that's an overstatement.
No.
Newspapers will not survive on sales. Especially in the context of Cameroon.
In that case, we don't have much time. Before you talk, and you talk about what...
I don't want us to live with the wrong idea here.
No, the wrong idea is government gives you subsidies.
Oh my!
Killian, what are we?
No. I think that's an insult. What government? That is an insult. If you have to compare Killian, that I spend over 3 million francs a year to produce my newspaper, and then government gives me maybe 800,000, 100,000. What is that compared to what I spend? That's an insult. When in other countries.
How much did you receive last year, please?
I've not even received.
No, last year.
Last year,
there was no money last year.
1.5. No,
there was no money for last year.
Well,
year before last,
2020,
we're still expecting 2020.
How much did you receive? 3 million. The Guardian Post.
3 million. The salary at the Guardian Post is 4.7 million every month.
You receive 1.5.
Yes.
Other receive from government, right? And you spend 3
No,
million.
government is not giving that money as.
This is what we are talking about. There are some newspapers in Cameroon that don't receive
Killian,
and they still operate.
Killian, please, like Christian said,
Christian, go ahead.
Let's not misinform our viewers.
Honestly,
because when you talk about media aid, how many media organs receive? To what
and how much do they receive?
And let's not misinform people.
No.
And when you also have journalists that are freelance, you have journalists that do not even apply for it. So we cannot say
80 received. As
what's 80 compared to
what is 80? I mean, out of 600 Killian, and then 80
and it is not a privilege. And media aid is not a privilege because it's from taxpayers' money. So don't make it look like it's a gift that
government is given to the press.
I'll feel bad if I don't talk.
No, you will talk. You are the one to talk now. Let us get it right. Newspapers like the Guardian Post and maybe like some of yours, when government publishes the public investment budget, about 3.5 million goes to these newspapers. You can quote me anywhere. On top
that is the World Bank money,
listen, on top of...
It's World Bank money.
And some of your newspapers are giving 2 regions, 3 regions. Which means if you multiply 3 million for your newspaper, plus about 3.5 times 2 regions, that takes you up to 10 million.
I wish you should start a newspaper, sir.
Do you disapprove of
and those are debts, which they
no, do you disapprove?
Those are internal debts.
Do you disapprove?
Let's not look like you brought us here. Can you allow me to talk?
Yes, go ahead.
The same ministry you are citing, Minipat, that's the Ministry of the Economy, Planning and Regional Development.
Yes.
Richard is my witness.
Yeah.
As at the last count, they are owing the Guardian Post 48 million francs.
Government always pays its debt.
When?
No, you can't be dismissive like that.
Which they give and then they don't pay because you are critical of government action. I want me to celebrate that.
He has not told you how much he has received. I
have not received because I'm critical of government action.
It has not been received.
We're going to move forward. We have just 2 minutes left to go.
Killian, you said newspapers survive on sales. It is a big no. We had the opportunity to be trained in the US last year. We've met newspaper publishers who they just publish and give for free because they live on adverts. But here in Cameroon, I cannot count the number of times the Guardian Post has been denied adverts because they say we are very critical of government action. How do we survive?
Okay, your last word.
My last word, I would say that I think government should continue to allow the press to operate freely.
When you say continue, it means that they are starting.
No, well, they should give the press the free hands to operate. They may have started somewhere, but they should give the press the complete free hands to operate.
There's a lot to say about press freedom in Cameroon, but my last words would just be to pay tribute to the journalists in Cameroon who are working in very difficult contexts, and they're doing so tirelessly. They're putting themselves on the line. Today, I want to pay tribute to the journalists who do the right thing, to check their facts and to keep power in check.
Thank you. Blaise?
Yeah, I think my last words, I really like that there should be an overhaul along the lines of the legislative framework which governs the media in the country, especially the putting in place of an Access to Information Act. It's very important.
You understand why we've not exhausted. Our time was short. Elvis Teke is here.
My last word.
You gave your last word. Just 2 messages from our viewers.
Okay, Prince Metabene Ubisa says, our liberty depends on the freedom of the press, but our journalists have to be responsible and avoid gumbo journalism. And we take this one from, this one is relating to the first topic from Eman Nana, who says, what research has our scientists carried out to qualify and brand the vaccine to be taken, considering that they are produced using different protocols, and Cameroonians can be skeptical about which vaccine they take because most of them have been offered to the country.
Thank you very much, Teke, for your indulgence. We didn't take all those messages that you brought for us from our viewers. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We want to thank you very much for making this set what it has been and what we are working to have in future. Thank you for watching. If you missed out on this program from the start, there is a broadcast Monday from 2:30 to 3 p.m. Thanks once again for watching. Nice time.